Picture a lake, not a small one, but a shallow, silver sheet of water stretching across a highland basin in what is now southern Tanzania, ringed by grass and thorn shrubs. Its shoreline trampled soft by the feet of animals that no longer exist anywhere on earth. Now picture the lake gone, erased, and in its place a major stone pillar, some taller than a two-story house, standing in airy foundation like a city built by no one, guarded by no one, and remembered by almost no one. This is Isimila. And beneath this tower of sandstone lies one of the largest concentration of Stone Age tools ever found on the African continents. Thousands upon thousands of hand axes, some so massive they seem built for giants rather than for human hand. But who made them? And why did they leave so many behind in one place? And in so many number that is still better archaeologists 70 years after discovery. And why? Hidden in this quiet corner of Iringa Highland, thus the answer to one of humanity's deepest questions, how we become who we are, lies scattered across the ground like a broken teeth. So stay with us because the story of Isimila began not with people at all, but with an accident, a wandering colonial officer, and a shallow lake that time forget. To understand Isimila, you first have to understand the ground itself. Because at Isimila, geology is not the backdrop of the story. Geology is the story. The site sit over on the Iringa Plateaus in the southern highland of Tanzania, roughly 20 kilometers from the modern town of Iriga, perched at an altitude of 1600 meters above sea level. This is Rift Country. The Great East African Rift Valley System, that colossal tear in the planet's crust that has been slowly pulling the continent apart for millions of years, run through this landscape. And it was that same tectonic restlessness that carved out the shallow sediment basin where Esimila would eventually form. Long before any hominids ever set foot here, this basin held a lake, not deep, not dramatic, but persistent, expanding and shrinking with the rhythm of ancient climate cycles, sometimes swelling into wide wetlands, sometimes retreating into muddy flats. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this lake did what patient body of water always do. It deposited layer after layer of sand, salt, and clay settled onto its floor, sealing it whatever fell into it. Leaves, bones, footprint, and eventually tools. Geologists now recognize these layers as distant members of sediments, with the deepest and the oldest known as the Likingi member, dated to somewhere between 500,000 and 900,000 years ago. And above that lies younger layer, packed with the archaeological material that make Esimila famous. Then came the erosion, long after the lake dried and the humans who lived beside it vanished into deep time. Wind and seasonal rainfall went to work on the exposed sediment, cutting narrow gorges and most spectacularly, sculpting the now iconic sandstone pillar that rise from the canyon floor like the finger of some buried giant, reaching for the sky. Tanganyika colonial geographer noted these strange foundations as early in the 1920s, decade before anyone realized what was buried beneath and around them. It is a process geologically similar to the one that carved Breeze Canyon in the United States. Different continent, different age, same ancient sculpture, water and time. And so, by the mid 20th century, Simila was a landscape with two secrets stacked on top of each other. Above the ground, a surreal forest of stone columns, and below and around them, the compressed, fossilized memory of a lake where early humans once hunted, butchered, and knapped stone for what may have been hundreds of thousands of years, and nobody knew it yet. That discovery would take a stroke of luck. In 1951, a colonial officer and amateur naturalist named D.A. McLean, was making his way through the eroded gully south of Iringia when something on the ground stopped him. A shaped stone, unmistakably worked by a human hand, lying beside fragments of ancient bone. It is one of those quite astonishing moments in archaeological history. No expedition, no funding, no grand theory. Just one curious man noticing what thousands of others had walked past. McLean had no idea he had just stumbled onto what would become recognized as one of the most important early Stone Age sites in East Africa. But word traveled, even from a remote highland distant, and within a few years, professional eyes were on Isimila. The systematic work began in earnest through the 1950s, led by the American paleontologist F. Clark Howell, alongside a team that would go on to include researchers such as Maxine Clendenist and Glenn Cole. What they found, as they cut careful trenches into the lake bed sediment, was almost overwhelming in scale. Isimila did not offer a handful of tools scattered here and there. It offers thousands. Hand axes, cleavers, picks, scrapers, core left behind from the process of striking flakes of large stone. Layer after layer, the site preserved not just individual objects but entire tool-making landscape. Places where early humans had sat, worked, discarded, and moved on, over and over, for an almost incomprehensible span of time. This was Auckland technology, named after the site of Saint Ahol in France, where such tools were the first scientifically classified in the 19th century. The Auckland tradition is without excavation one of the longest lived technology traditions in the entire human history, persisted for over a million years across Africa, Asia, and Europe. And Isimila represents one of the finest, most concentrated late-stage expression, comparable in importance to other legendary East Africa sites like Olduvai Gorge, Colombo Fall, and Ology Saline in Kenya. Picture the scene as it likely was, hundreds of thousands of years ago. A shallow seasoned lake, its muddy margins churned by the hover and feet of gazing animals coming to drink. Group of early hominins, almost certainly Homo erectus, the long-legged, tool-wielding species that first pushed the human lineages beyond Africa, camped along these shores, not once, but again and again, generation after generation, drawn back by the same irresistible combination that has drawn creature to water for as long as life has existed. Prey animal, fresh water, and raw material. The sediments around the ancient shoreline were rich in stone suitable for napping, and the animals that came to drink became for the toolmaker waiting nearby both opportunity and danger. This is why Isimila is often described by archaeologists as a kill and butchery landscape, as much as a workshop. The fossilized bone recovered from the same layer as the tools, including the remains of extinct or unrecognized species, an ancient, short-necked relative of the modern giraffe, an extinct species of hippopotamus, primitive pigs, and other Pleistocene gazers that would look almost, but not quite, familiar to us today, like distant cousins of glimpsed through frog. The picture that emerges is of hominins ambushing or scavenging these animals at the water's edge, then using freshly struck stone tools to break down the carcasses on the spot, leaving behind both the bones of their meals and the tools used to process them. All of it eventually sealed under sediment for the deep future to find. And by now, the excavator knew they had found something extraordinary. A lakeside workshop used and reused for a length of time almost impossible to comprehend. But as F. Clark Howell's team kept digging deeper into the sediments, they uncovered something that did not fit the pattern at all. Scattered among the thousands of ordinary, palm sized hand axes were a handful of tools nearly 3 times the size, heavy, deliberate, and strangely excessive. Tools that raise a question that archaeologists still cannot fully answer. So, in part 2 of our journey to Isimila, we are going to look at exactly what those giant axes might mean, how scientists are still trying to date these sites more than 70 years after its discovery, and why this quiet Tanzanian valley belonged in the same conversation as Oldove George when we talk about how humanity learned to think. So stay with us. Until then, be curious and keep questioning with history under the cap.